wanted to stay. Know what happened, and he just. But the organization are in shock. I know that they're a dark horse for Mountain Country comes in as their number one center.
Or like your 10.5 is still there. It's not like it went someplace getting a guy like Nas who's a huge personality and bringing him into the organization as a star.
And a guy that said no to Calgary a couple of years ago.
Yeah. If Nas out of town and he declined to trade to Calgary, he looked up and something that one that Toronto ended up worked out too well for the Leafs.
No. And, Calgary, as you mentioned, they've got some big decisions to make. Mangiapane and Tkachuk are both RFAs this year, so they're getting focused. But that's, cap money coming back to them. $5.25 billion, they're spending on a fourth-line player. But Michael Backman's only signed for another 2 years. Elias Lindholm another 2 years. Tyler Toffoli 2 years. So that team could look completely different in 2 years' time.
Like, they might just say, hey, we're going in, which for Calgary fans, like, for the season you had this year where it looked like in January this is the front runner for the Stanley Cup, and then all of a sudden we get to the offseason and you lose your star player and the next guy might be out the door next offseason and you might be in rebuild mode. Like, I'm feeling for Calgary Flames fans today.
It's going to be a tough pill to swallow, and I feel like having that promising season ended by the Oilers also is just... I've seen some Oilers fans doing tap dances around like it was their Stanley Cup this afternoon. It was pretty good. You gotta love when that rivalry gets real fiery, but that's a rough one for Calgary.
Yeah, and Oilers fans are like, we got all the guys we wanted. Like, they got Anthony Kane. That was the two guys on their list that they got them.
Yep.
Oh, my God. All right, I want to talk about the team that I think won the free agency so far. I think they won the draft and they won free agency, and that's the Ottawa Senators. Sean Simpson of TSN tweeted out the top 6 that could be opening day for the Senators. DeBrincat, Stützle, Giroux, Tkachuk, Norris, Batherson. That's a really good top 6, and all of a sudden, the Ottawa Senators are, I don't know, one of the top 4 best teams in the Atlantic Division. What do you think of their signings? They get the Giroux signing 3 years, 6.5 per year, 19.5 total. They did the Cam Talbot for Philip Gustafson deal with the Minnesota Wild. They get another goalie in there, Talbot. They did Brinkett from Chicago earlier. They did Murray from Toronto. They did Connor Brown for a second-round pick. They moved him out so they could bring in another defenseman, hopefully with the extra cap space. Andrew, what do you think of the set?
I'm floored by Pierre Dorian coming out of nowhere and being a good GM. I mentioned last year that I felt like they didn't really have any star players. They had like some good players, but the rebuild hasn't been as successful as they think because it's been, you built the depth, but you don't have the star players to carry the ship, and now, well, Alex DeBrincat is a star player. Claude Giroux is not a star player anymore in terms of offense, but he still brings two-way play that makes him essentially a star player and is now playing like underpaid. Like $6.5 million is not enough. And Claude Giroux, and he took a hometown discount to go back to Ottawa. That's fantastic, And you see guys like Stützle and Tkachuk and Batherson and Norris all taking steps forward. They've got other young players coming up. That's a good team if they can get more than one good defenseman. I guess Artem Zubov's not bad either. So they've got 2 good defensemen, but Zygmunt and Hamonic are going to hold them back a little bit. And I don't think it's fair to expect Jake Sanderson to hold down the entire second pair.
And like you said, it's really Chabot and the 5 guys. What they have right now. And Dorian needs to make a move with that Connor Brown money to bring in the defenseman to really make the team a contender. It's probably going to take more than one. Like, I know it's probably going to be one just based on the salary cap and how it's going to work, but they might need a little bit more help with that. And to Giroux point, the hometown discount, during his press conference, I don't know who the reporter was, but one of the reporters was like, it's going to be nice that you can walk to the arena again. I was like, it's so true, the dude grew up right there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when the new arena's in, is that what they're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, because they're not walking to Canada.
No one can walk to Canada. Canada's on an island.
You can barely drive to Canada. It's ridiculous. But what's amazing about the Senators is they still have like $20 million in cap space. I know they're not going to spend in the cap, but what the hell? Like, this is a decent team here. It's kind of annoying because I expect them to be bad for a longer amount of time, but I feel like they're maneuvering in goal and forward in the last little while. And the draft has been incredible. Like, they took advantage of the assets that they have to add in the right spots. I'm really excited to watch them, honestly. I think they're going to be really excited to watch.
And like everything Dorian's done is kind of what we want out of GMs. He's been playing NHL 22 over here with the moves, where it's just you're mixing and shaking and you're moving guys out, you're getting creative with the situations. And even with, how much did you say they have to cap $19 million?
Yeah, $19.5 million.
And that includes the Matt Murray cap, the Bobby Ryan cap hit. They're still paying Dion Phaneuf, I'm pretty sure.
And Colin White.
Colin White still forever.
And Michael Delzato.
And they still have $19 million.
Yeah, of their $62 million cap hit, 3.56 is buyout. And then they have another 1.56 for Matt Murray. So it's essentially just over $5 million of that is players to not play for them.
Wow.
Like,
and it can only get better, because like those are going to come off the books and then you're going to add pieces. And they've already got the Brady Kachuk deal done that they did last offseason, the 8.25 for 8 years. So he's locked up, and they won't have any of the big contracts. Maybe the RFA is a Stutzla deal, but Shabbat's also locked up. And then
they've still got to figure out Josh Norris this year. He's an RFA, so that's going to cost them, I would say, at least $5 million because he scored 30 goals last year. But I guess if they go long term, it would be a bit higher. And then next year is where they've got DeBrincat and Tim Stutzla to talk about. So
RFA deals, though.
Yeah, RFA deals, but I mean, if Stutzla's playing all year with Alex DeBrincat, where you can set him up, or close your room where he's getting set up, that's going to be a pretty expensive deal, I think.
But like maybe let's say you hold back some of this money. Some of that goes to Norris this offseason. So let's say you have $15 million left. Then you got like Hammond coming off the book. That'll free you up. Maybe you go back to like 13. Mm-hmm. And then when you split that 13 between Brinkett and Timmy Stutz, then you're good. You're laughing. You're Norris.
It's a great situation to be in. If they actually have, the go-ahead to spend to the cap going forward, they have some real room to make this a very good team. So I guess it also depends on, does DeBrincat want to stay there after 1 year?
Yeah. I'm waiting for Ian Mendez or someone out there to write the article about how things have changed since the passing of Eugene Melnick, and if whoever's running it now, I believe it's his daughter, have just given the thumbs up for them to go ahead, and if they will become a cap team because they want to put this fun team into Ottawa, the new arena, and all that.
Yeah, I mean, the most obvious change I thought was as soon as that happened, Pierre McGuire got sent running for the hills. There's only one Pierre allowed. It wasn't going to be McGuire. I think he saw that as challenging his authority, and I heard that Dorian was overruled on a few things by Pierre McGuire over the last year, and they weren't the correct decisions, like drafting Tyler Boucher.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because it was very clear when Eugene passed, and then that's kind of the second move that the organization makes is where one single individual. It was very clear that he did not mesh well with management.
Yeah, a guy who was hired by Melnick, not Dorian.
Yeah.
Right? So it was very clear, this is a guy who is not necessarily under Pierre Dorian's thumb. And then all of a sudden Dorian goes out and makes great move after great move. I mean, I think he's done more for his legacy as a GM in the last year than he has in the last few.
Yeah, I've absolutely loved what the Sens have done. A+ on the free agency grade. Beyond
Totally agree.
For them, for sure. And I don't know, what would you give the Toronto Maple Leafs?
A lot of people are down on the Leafs for the goaltending situation, but I am kind of giving them credit. I don't want to say that they did great, because there's still a lot of question marks, but I think people forget that because Jack Campbell had a decent, pandemic-shortened season, that Jack Campbell was not a sure thing at any point. When the Leafs traded for him over the previous 3 years, he had the worst high danger save percentage in the entire NHL. I thought it was a really risky move if they were going to go with him over Anderson. And he played great for a while. And then he started last season great. And then from December to the end of the season, he was like the worst starting goaltender in the NHL by far. He had like an 86% save percentage. He was brutal. And the Leafs just kept winning. They just kept going on. And then Mrazek was also terrible and paid too much. And the Leafs, they moved down a couple spots in the draft, like 10 or 11 spots. But they moved Mrazek's cap hit. They added Matt Murray, who, yes, has a checkered injury history and has been rough the last few years as well, similar to Campbell, but for less money, less term. Then they add Ilya Samsonov, who, yes, has been up and down the last couple of years, but is younger, promising, low cap hit, low term. I see the Leafs as a team that lowered the amount of money they're paying for the goaltender, didn't drop the talent level very far, added a two-time Stanley Cup champion who they could get somewhere close to that level again, playing behind a much better defensive system than it gets credit for on the show this season. And I don't think they added that much more risk. And they cut down the term as well. So now they've got, if these two don't work out, they can be out of there within basically a year. Like, they can buy Matt Murray out or trade him somewhere else at the end of the year or at the deadline. It's easy to move 1 year. I'm really impressed, honestly, by the maneuvering Kyle Dubas was able to do the goal. And I like the Ovi Cabell signing as well.
Just to run down for anybody who missed those signings the Leafs made, as Andrew mentioned, Samsonov, $1.8 million for 1 year. Ovi Cabell, $1 million for 1 year. Adam Gaudette, $750,000, $750,000, like that's it, for 1 year. And then, they made the Matt Murray move last week. The way you break it down is very reasonable. Like, the Leafs moves here, if you're a fan of podcasts on these networks, they'll be breaking down to death tomorrow on the Steve Dangle podcast, all 4 of these moves. But the way you lay it out there is very reasonable. And Matt Murray, Samsonov tandem isn't that much worse than an unknown Campbell and Mrazek, who's always interested.
Right, and the fact is, it could be better. Like, Samsonov could be the starter by the end of the year if he recovers like his rookie form that he had in Washington. And, Matt Murray might be able to have his confidence come back in a tighter defensive system like Toronto runs. Like, I feel like people don't give credit to the Leafs defense because Campbell last year and Mrazek just got terrible numbers. Like, they were just terrible. They were terrible for that, 3 or 4 months. It was unbelievable. Like, I remember talking to Steve